Hi, I'm Alex Owana with Vintage King Audio. I'm here with Bill Learned, and we want to give you an introduction to an exciting new room calibration and correction system called the Trinnov. What is the Trinnov system? What does it do for a studio?
Well, this is the Trinnov D-MON 6, and it serves a lot of different purposes in the studio. What it's most commonly known for right now is that it can be a alternative monitor management box to the Avid console, the S6, the D control, or the D command.
So instead of XMON, it's D-MON.
Right, so instead of the XMON, it's the D-MON. You get all of the same routing aspects, but you also get the Trinnov room calibration. In addition to it functioning as a alternative to the Avid console, you can also run it as a standalone monitor management system and take advantage of the room calibration technology in it.
What does the room calibration do for the speakers or for your studio?
So if you look here, this, and we'll walk you through it from the beginning, but this is ultimately the end result of the Trinnov. Through a combination of algorithms and its proprietary operating system and the Trinnov calibration mic, it will send a noise tone through the speakers, and the mic will take measurements of how the noise responds to the room and assign corrective calibration. So it will make adjustments to the EQ, it will make adjustments to the time alignment, it'll make adjustments to the phase, the delay, everything, thusly removing any oddball, weird harmonic reaction that the room is having to your speakers.
Whereas other calibration systems in the past have only addressed the EQ of your speakers,
Right.
this is actually taking a look at the response of what's coming out of your speakers as that initial impulse, and it kind of captures that little slice of time when that test tone comes out.
Right.
But then it also captures the next slice of time, which is naturally what happens in any room, which is what happens when the sound coming out of the speakers hits the walls and then comes back to the listening position, and all that crazy interference that happens there. Because if you only correct for the EQ,
Right.
you've only corrected one little slice of what's going on when you listen to speakers in a room.
So when you look at the, well said, and when you look at the phasing graph, you know, this is before the how the room is laid out. This is the corrective action that Trinnov puts in, and then this is the after effect. This is the room now. So, you know, the other calibration monitor management systems, they don't really come close to adjusting the phase aspects of the room the way the Trinnov does.
Right. Yeah. And back in the old days, which happens so fast now, technology advancing so quickly, if you were just doing a room corrective EQ, like what was it called, like a white EQ that was so popular, by changing, by fixing some of the frequency responses, you were actually creating as many phase problems.
Right.
So it was kind of like, fixing one thing but then causing another set of problems. But the Trinnov is able to correct both the frequency and the phase at the same time.
And one of the, it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the responses that I've seen a handful of times from demos is that it takes somebody so far outside of their comfort zone when it comes to their listening environment, because they've become used to those deficiencies in the room, that Trinnov actually built in an option to go in to the target curve and the excursion curve, and you can actually make adjustments to the amount of optimization that's applied to certain frequencies.
So you're telling me Trinnov will take you all the way, it'll give you a perfect response, but if you...
There's a way to peel it back a little bit.
Right, so because we're used to there being anomalies. I would imagine when you first set this up in somebody's studio, which you've done a bunch of times, that kind of reality check of suddenly going from all the imperfections you're used to perfect reproduction could be a huge mental shift.
You
to
go
make.
into a composer room,
Yeah.
and these guys have two 30-inch monitors right next to each other, pushing their stereo field unnaturally wide, but they've just adjusted to it over time because they've been writing on it that way for so long. And it works. And when we've brought the Trinnov in, the Trinnov recognizes how disproportionately wide the stereo field is, and it will actually bring it in and completely change the dynamic of the composer's listening experience. So if you go to the optimizer settings and you see the positions chart here, these little green dots are where the speakers are, and these little blue dots are where the Trinnov wants to put the speakers. So in a composer setting, you would see the little green dots disproportionately wider, and then you would see the little blue dots come in.
So the Trinnov can actually correct a stereo field as well. Like
Correct.
if it's lopsided or you've got those monitors in between creating some weird waves around. Like here's your monitors back here. Here's a pair of big monitors for seeing all your work. And that's got to mess up the sound of your monitors as the sound passes by them.
Correct.
But then the Trinnov can correct and make that stereo image where at the listening position be correcting it.
Exactly, you get the point. So, one of the, but Trinnov does understand that, like, the technology is so advanced, and the layers of adjustments that it makes in regards to the phase, in regards to the time alignment, in regards to the EQ, it's so much that sometimes, you want to peel it back. You don't want it to be perfect because you're used to the imperfections. So that's where the excursion curve comes into play. So let's walk ourselves through the D-MON here. So there's two main verticals in the Trinnov market. There's the ST and MC series, and then there's the D-MON series. The D-MON series is the version that people will use to integrate with Avid consoles. The D-MON is the version that you go to when you need a 5.1 system. It's the most economic solution for 5.1 or 7.1 in the Trinnov line. There's other alternatives. The D-MON is a locked architecture. The other alternatives have an open architecture. So you can expand far past 7.1. You can go up to 64 I/O.
So for Dolby Atmos systems.
For Dolby Atmos systems, exactly. But the open architecture comes at a higher cost.
Right.
So if you know that your needs are limited to 5.1 or 7.1, the D-MON is what you want to get. So the D-MON is much more network based than the other Trinnov solutions. So step one in getting into the Trinnov D-MON and adjusting your inputs and outputs is go into a web browser. So the Trinnov has to be on the network, and then literally all you have to do is enter in the IP address, which is shown in the Networks tab under the Setup menu. So you see your IP address there, Ethernet plugged into the back of the D-MON. You go to your internet browser, you type in the IP address, and boom,
Cool.
there's your Trinnov I/O.
Could I do that from a tablet or a?
You can do it from a tablet, from a phone, anything.
And so I could. What are the things I can control from that IP-based interface?
Volume, speaker routing, all aspects of monitor management.
Cool.
This is your monitor management. And then to access the calibration side of the Trinnov, you go back to your web browser, and it's a single board computer, Linux-based operating system. So all we need to do is make sure that the Trinnov is on the network, make sure your computer is on the network, and then we go to your web browser and you type in vnc:// and then the IP address.
10.1.0.2.
And then your password is your product ID.
Is that like the serial number? Or no, it's, sorry, separate than the serial number. So that tells it that it's a D-MON 6 in this
Right.
case.
So there it is. So step 1, go to your internet browser, vnc://. Step 2, type in the IP address. It'll ask you for a password. Step 3, type in your product ID. And then all of a sudden, your calibration side and your monitor management side are all on the same computer. And the benefits of this is the fact that all of a sudden you're not hardwired. You can get to it from a tablet, from a phone. All aspects of monitor management switching and calibration. And where that really comes into play, where that really becomes advantageous, is when film score mixer is mixing a project and the composer is sitting on the couch in the back. And the people doing the work can give their clients an iPad and will have control over aspects of monitor management from their listening position. So makes things a little bit more fun, makes things a little bit more interesting. On the Trinnov D-MON routing application, it's for all intents and purposes your input sources. So you go in, and the way the D-MON is set up, you've got 8 channels of analog audio going in and out. You've got 8 channels of AES audio going in and out. Now the D-MON 6 only has 6 channels of optimization, but some of the aspects of why they would put 8 analog inputs going in, for example, is because you can, in essence, sum or multiple inputs. So the Pro Tools guys can send channels 1 through 6 into the Trinnov and output to a 5.1, but they can also take the stereo output from their Apple Audio built-in sound card and run that into the back of the Trinnov. So at any time, Pro Tools audio and Apple Audio from the same computer is getting summed in the Trinnov and sent to the outputs.
So in that way, it's really a good monitor controller.
That aspect makes it a far more advanced monitor controller than a lot of other 5.1 monitor management systems out there, which I won't name. So this is your inputs, and then this guy here, the second tab to the right is your inputs. The third tab to the right is your outputs. So, if you can see here that you can set it up for mono, stereo plus sub, 5.0, 5.1. So third tab from the right is your output sources, and you can input a stereo input into the Trinnov, and you can output 2.1. You can use the Trinnov for bass management.
The Trinnov will work as a crossover between the mains and the sub.
Correct. Trinnov will act as a crossover. You can select your crossover frequency right here, bass management. You can select the volume level of the sub. So you can really get in and really fine tune the system.
About the sub,
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to put your sub off in the corner, or you can't ideally place it. Maybe there's not room under your desk. Will it turn off time align where your sub is relative to your mains?
Exactly. Speaker placement in the room becomes a lot easier when you throw the Trinnov in there. The Trinnov is a solution for a lot of different things. It's your monitor management system. It's an alternative investment to acoustic treatment. It's an alternative investment to upgrading speakers. It's an alternative to moving things around in your room and repositioning your speakers physically, repositioning your sub physically. There's a lot of things that the Trinnov can do that the more you get to use it, the more you understand how many solutions that it really does offer. So there's our inputs, there's our outputs. And we have done that. So now that you've gone in to the routing aspect of the D-MON app, then you jump back over to the calibration aspect of the D-MON, and this is where the magic happens. You go to Optimizer Settings, 4th tab down is Calibration, and we want to name our calibration first. So we will call this VK, and then since we're using Focal's Trio speakers, we'll just name it VK Trio. Oh, the Trinnov, looking at it solely as a monitor management system, it's one of the only or very few monitor management devices that allows you attenuation over AES signal going in and out. So if somebody has an output from their DAW that's AES, they can pop it into the Trinnov. Trinnov can output AES and allow you volume control over that. There's a lot of other competing monitor management systems that do not allow you volume control over AES signal going in and out. People working in post-production, people working in sound design, people working in an environment where they need the absolute lowest noise floor possible, where they're working on an analytical level, where they need no risk of elevated noise floor or anything like that. They really use this aspect of it. And then there's a variety of speakers that have AES inputs that you can just run it digitally all the way in, and it sounds great.
So fewer steps of conversion.
Fewer steps of conversion. So let's calibrate. So we've gone in and we've named our calibration. And one of the important aspects of calibration, if you see here, there's a little box where it says 1 here, and then there's the option to weight it +1 or -1. So if you go down to add, and I'll explain why this is relevant in a moment. If you go down to add, you can set multiple calibration points, setting multiple sweet spots.
Oh, different spots in the room.
Right.
So you can calibrate for your main listening position.
Right.
And then you were talking about the client couch.
The client couch.
Right.
Has an iPad that can access the calibration aspects of it. So the client can sit in the back of the room on the couch. Mixer, composer can have multiple calibrations already set up. Give it to the client, and the client can have the ability to control monitor management, but also switch the listening position to where they are.
The client couch in the back of the room is notorious for being boomy, or for the speakers to not really have a good stereo image, or for the mix to kind of fall apart. So you're saying the Trinnov can calibrate. If you set up the measurement mic there back at the client couch, you'll calibrate for that position. And when they come in and you're going to do your presentations and playbacks for the client back on that couch, you switch the Trinnov over to that position, the client couch position, and everything is put into focus for the perfect reproduction back there.
Exactly. And when you take advantage of certain aspects like that in the Trinnov, you start to get your work approved on revision 1 or 2, as opposed to getting it approved on revision 10, because you're not trying to figure out how to make it sound great where they're sitting back there. So there you go. So we've added multiple positions. We're gonna delete these positions now. But the other important thing to note about setting up multiple positions is that there are speakers that sound amazing that have very, very narrow, tight sweet spots. So what you can do in that regard, and these numbers don't mean anything because we're not going to go through the calibration, but weighting the positions, weighting the different calibration points, and leaving them all engaged at the same time, you can actually for a speaker that's got a very narrow sweet spot, you can set a primary calibration, you can set a calibration a little off to the right, and a calibration a little off to the left, and in essence, widen your listening experience, widen your stereo field. And you can weight those calibrations so that they're all simultaneously being used, and make the speaker sound however you want.
That could come into play if you had a wide mixing console or a multi-operator situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I see a lot of guys who have like a keyboard off to one side, maybe a composer keyboard off to one side, but it's not necessarily in the sweet spot. Would that be helpful in that?
There's yes. There's a lot of different ways that you can take advantage of the different calibration points. Whether or not you want to widen your stereo field for yourself, whether or not you want to set up, sweet spots throughout the room. There's a lot of different advantages of it. So we're ready to calibrate. Important note, very important note. Don't turn the mic on until it tells you to.
What will happen?
Well, you'll get a terrible, very awkward, ear-piercing feedback loop.
Does the Trinnov tell you when to turn the microphone on and off?
The Trinnov tells you when to turn the microphone on and off.
Okay, good to note.
So
follow instructions on the screen.
Follow the instructions on the screen. So we hit the calibrate. I'm going to ask you to...
Okay. So I'll get out of the way of the speakers.
Please turn on the mic and press OK. Mic is on. Press OK. Please turn off the microphone. So we are calibrated, and after we calibrate, we always compute. Okay. So we've calibrated and we've computed. Step that commonly gets looked over a lot. After it's computed, you always want to go back to your preset, and you want save it. So now, saved forever until you delete it, and you want to lock it. So when it's defined, it tells you that you're listening to it, and when it's locked, it says nobody else is changing it. So
does that lock you out from doing some of the bracketing that we were talking about? What's that called again? Limiting the excursion?
The excursion curve.
Right. Does when you hit
you just have to go back in and
lock.
save it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what the Trinnov does, and this is VKLA, so our listening room is pretty dialed for the most part, but there's some some very very subtle dips and bumps in the room, but this is a layout of what it does, and you can go through and just see, like look at the left channel. This is what the room was reading on the bottom. This is the corrective action that the Trinnov did, and now this is the room as flat as can be. Same thing. This to me is one of the more interesting aspects. There's always mystery phase issues going on in anybody's creative space that they get so used to it they don't realize that it's there. And the Trinnov can go in and really dial in the deficiencies going on in the phasing in the room. So just like the EQ, this is before, this is what the Trinnov did, and then this is how it looks.
It looks like it's smoothed out. It looks like it's smoothed out phase issues from about 120 up. Those are completely gone now.
Correct.
When the Trinnov corrects for phase, what will be kind of the difference in sound you'll hear?
I think the biggest thing that you'll hear right away is the improvement in stereo imaging in your primary listening position. You're going to hear total separation between all all aspects of the mix. You're going to hear more separation between the guitar hook and the hi-hat, and the snare and the synth hook. It's going to completely and totally enhance the imaging experience of listening. And in doing that, it's going to give you access to dig a lot deeper creatively into the mix. So that's pretty much it. That's the Trinnov.
From what you showed me, Bill, there's a lot of technology going on behind the Trinnov and under the hood of the Trinnov, and you showed us a pretty deep look at it. But on the surface, and just as a user, the simple steps of setting up the mic at the listening position, hitting calibrate, hitting save, and basically just watching the Trinnov 30 seconds later, fixing all your room problems, all your speaker problems, all the early reflections. It's flattened that out, both in terms of spectral information, high to low. It's fixed the phase issues. It's fixed timing issues. It's integrated a subwoofer, and it's all these problems go away after hitting that calibrate button. You save that preset, and it's a whole new world for you. So Vintage King is the exclusive North American dealer for Trinnov, and if you have any more questions about the Trinnov system, you can give us a call at Vintage King. You can talk to Bill Learned, Chris Belitho, myself, Alex Awana, and we can help you get set up with what's really, the word game changer gets thrown around a bit too much, but Trinnov has been working on this technology for so long, and this is truly a game changer for People Studios. Thanks for watching Vintage King Audio's introduction to Trinnov.